M. Night Shyamalan is back with a new film, Knock at the Cabin. Now, whatever you might think of old M. Night, love him, hate him, love to hate him, you cannot deny the man knows how to make a weird, high concept, vaguely supernatural thriller slash horror film that usually features a twist that makes or breaks the film. But one thing I'm starting to notice about M. Night Shyamalan that doesn't get discussed nearly enough is that he seems to be able to get incredible child performances from his child actors. Almost every single one of his films, and I think the better the film, the better the child performance. Every single time, just a fantastic little child actor. He's some kind of good director with children, I guess is what I'm saying. It also could just be that he's very lucky and he has a really good, casting agent. It could also just be that. It's probably just that. So Knock at the Cabin is based on the book The Cabin at the End of the World, which, if I'm being honest, is a far better film title. I absolutely love that. What a title to a book. It almost makes me want to read the book. I'm not going to, though. I'm never going to read another book. I was going to read 2 more books, but they're never coming out. So it turns out I'm never going to read another book again. And frankly, I'm fine with that, because every time I'm like, oh, that book series sounds good. They're like, here's a show, here's a movie. Dune's sitting on my bookcase, the bookcase that I definitely have with actual books that actually sit there waiting for me to read them. And I was like, yes, close to reading it. And then Dune came out, and I'm like, why would I read it when I could just continuously rewatch Dune? But I suppose the title Knock at the Cabin is more vague and mysterious. I've always loved films with the setting of a cabin in the woods ever since I watched Evil Dead 1 and 2 as a teenager, and my mind exploded and I became obsessed with horror and horror comedies and just madness and insanity in films ever since watching those films as a wee little baby boy. So ever since then, I've loved when a director has tackled the setting that is cabin in the woods. So when I found out that M. Night Shyamalan was tackling this cabin in the woods setting, I was just, I was licking my lips. I was like, I'm excited for this movie. I found this film to be tense, riveting, great performances, an amazing score, and a suitably, fantastically, stupidly insane, high-concept plot that I could not get enough of. I don't know if this plot, as soon as the premise starts off in that first act, you're gonna know if you're gonna be on board or not, I think, because it's just, it's a lot. But I do have a couple of, quibbles and, thoughts on the ending and the whole way it wrapped up. Classic M. Night, just, man, he knows how to make an ending. Whether you agree with it or disagree with the choice of the endings of his films, he ends films, doesn't he? So I will get to all those spoilery things at the end, but the first half of this will be spoiler-free, timecodes and, all that YouTube-y stuff. The film is about a daughter and her parents as they are vacationing at a beautiful cabin in the woods, but then suddenly 4 mysterious strangers arrive, wielding weapons, and they, you guessed it, knock at the cabin. They tell this family that they must make a choice. Let me tell you. It's a pretty big choice. It's like a big choice. It's not like am I gonna have tuna or ham for lunch? What kind of meat is going in my sandwich for lunch? Not an everyday choice is what I'm trying to get at. Although, when are you picking tuna? That's insane. If you've got any other kind of meat choice, you're not picking tuna. Are you? Are you picking tuna? You madman? The film is all about choice. The whole film centers around these 4 strangers arriving and being like, you've got to make one big old choice, or, and get this, the world will end. If you don't make the correct choice, the choice we've asked you to make, the world will end. It's all apocalyptic. It's pretty weird, it's pretty vague, and it's all kinds of nonsense, and this is where the film gets really fun. The whole film plays out like a standard home invasion, but classic M. Night Shyamalan with a twist. The twist is that it is all about this choice that the captors have put onto this family. It's all about the characters' choices and motivations, and every single time they say anything, you're just questioning whether or not what they're saying is true, whether or not they believe what they're saying, and the whole film kind of plays this cat and mouse game between the captors and the captees, and there's a bit of a seesawing situation going on over whether you believe it, whether you don't believe it, whether it's something else entirely, and the film is at its best when it is properly handling this material and it's really like keeping you on your toes, and as an audience member you are guessing and kind of trying to figure it out along with, you know, our main characters, the family. The film has a couple of moments of shocking, brutal violence, but the film constantly hides it or kind of pans away. Like, the camera never shows the violence. We never see the actual kind of interaction or impact of the violence. And while I understand they might want to keep it for kind of teens and younger audiences, they're keeping it at an M or a PG for America. But I think if they'd made it MA and shown some of the actual impact and shown a bit more of the gore, I think it actually would have had more of an effect. The thing that really carries this whole film on its shoulders is the acting. Every single actor in this film is fantastic, but the main character, Dave Bautista, is the standout. He is so good. Every single time he appears in a film, he is giving a different, unique performance from anything I've seen before. It is so crazy to me that Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy, that big wrestler guy that wasn't as successful as the other big wrestler guys in John Cena and The Rock, is now probably my favorite wrestler turned actor by like a long way. And I'm not trying to throw shade. Like, I love The Rock. I particularly love John Cena. But Dave Bautista brings a certain kind of magic to his performances. And this, once again, is something so unique and so different. He is such a big, menacing, physical presence. He is just so macho and huge and just insane. It's like you just kind of expect something from him. And in this film, being a home invader, he comes in just looking like he does. But then his performance is so calm and soft-spoken and just so measured. And there is this quiet malice to it, but also he's so conflicted with what he's doing, and there's this, it's a really, really interesting performance. He makes the film. Like, his performance is breathtaking. It's amazing. Whatever quibbles and nibbles or whatever I have, nibbles? I don't think that's a thing. Whatever issues I have with the end, I don't really care, because his performance alone makes the movie. He's often kind of straddled with a lot of exposition, and trust me, the exposition gets pretty out there and pretty weird at times, and a lot of it could kind of really drag the film down and make it really, like, I don't know, maybe silly or dumb, but he makes it feel chilling and upsetting and unnerving. Like, he does a really good performance. Also, fun little shout out to Ron Weasley, who makes an appearance in this movie, teaming up once again with M.Night Shyamalan. They've teamed up before in the show Servant, which is now in its 4th and final season, and I cannot stress this enough, it might be the best thing on TV right now. It is so good. Seriously, go check out Servant. It's like the best thing that M. Night has touched, like, ever. It's so good. The film plays around with some really interesting themes and ideas of faith, acceptance, prejudice. It does it all in this really interesting way where it's doing this big high concept idea, but it keeps it really, really personal. On that note, there are a couple of flashbacks throughout the movie of the family, of the main couple, as we see little glimpses of their life before this big event at the cabin. And whilst somehow they did so much with so little, with these little snippets, I do wonder if they had maybe either done more of these little snippets or maybe had bigger, meatier scenes when we did flashbacks. It would kind of lend itself more to the final act when stuff really gets heated and stuff really kicks off, and it would have kind of made the end of the film pack a bigger punch. And whilst it didn't not pack a punch, I just think that it's like, this film's at 100 minutes, and I think adding 10 minutes on wouldn't have made this film feel like it was too long. It wouldn't have made the film feel like it dragged. Like, this film went like at a really quick, brisk pace, so I think adding 10 more minutes of the flashbacks that we do get would have really kind of strengthened the film. So if you love people knocking on cabin doors, and then, you know, other things happening in a film, you're gonna love this film. Will it change your mind on M. Night Shyamalan if you're not the biggest M. Night Shyamalan fan? No. But even if you don't love M. Night, and even if you don't love this film, I think it is worth watching. It is a fascinating thought experiment at worst. And at best, it's a really enjoyable, fun, crazy film. I think it has some really interesting, thought-provoking ideas at play that I think is worth the watch. Even though at times I feel like maybe it could have pushed its concept and its main, like, story plot, like, maybe pushed it a little further, because it feels like at times it's kind of holding its punches. And if you're on the fence about M. Night Shyamalan, I reckon just check it out, because for Dave Bautista alone, it's worth it. Okay, so now we're in spoiler time. So check out if you don't want to know any spoilers, because I'm going to kind of discuss the whole film and the choice. 1, 2, 3, spoilers! So, the choice that Dave Bautista and his 3 cronies give the family is one of you 3 have to die and the other 2 have to kill you. And if you do this, the world will not end. And they pose a bunch of things saying there'll be tsunamis, things will fall from the sky, there'll be fire that erupts, and it'll be chaos and carnage. It's all pretty bad, and it all seems insane and nonsense and ridiculous, and for so much of the film, they try their best. M. Night tries his best to convince you of these red herrings that they are in fact maybe suicide cult members, maybe they're homophobic people due to Rupert Grint's past, and this is just some big homophobic torture scheme, and there's all these different things that they're trying to kind of put onto you that it could be rather than what they just say it is as the truth. But for me, one of my biggest issues is that I never really felt these red herrings. They always felt like at times mostly the whole film, I found it interesting and, thoroughly enjoying as I watched it, mostly for the characters and our family dealing with this and them being like, it must be this, and them trying to ration through the madness. But as an audience member, I never really felt like anything else was happening rather than they had to kill one of them or the apocalypse would happen. For some reason, it never really clicked with me that it could be anything else. So all these other red herrings, whilst I enjoyed them on a story level for the characters that are trapped there, for the family, I found myself kind of wishing that somehow M. Night Shyamalan was able to trick me as the audience member. And I wonder, maybe other audience members, I'm super curious what people think. Were you tricked? Did you think, oh no, at one point I did think it was this. Oh no, when you found out Rupert Grint had met him in the past, I thought it was this and this and that. I don't know, maybe it did work for people, but I kind of think that's the one thing stopping this film from being it was a really great fun film to being a truly great film, is that just for the whole film, I'm they are totally telling the truth, I totally believe them, they need to kill one of them for the apocalypse to not happen. And I'm also not saying that I felt like it needed this big kind of classic M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end where they're walking out and they've done it, and then as they drive off safely, the 2 survivors, a car hits them and it's oh, what did it mean? Did it mean anything? Twist! M. Night Shyamalan twist in your face! But I still felt like the ending felt a little lackluster. There were moments that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the kind of revelation that one guy has where he's we needed to see these 4 people kill themselves. Because as the film progresses, if you're still watching but haven't seen the film for some reason, as the film progresses, every time the family says no, one of these kind of strangers that appear kills themselves as this kind of sacrifice, and it's kind of this moment where the apocalypse kind of kicks off even worse and even worse and even worse. And I loved that moment where they're oh, this is the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, but in this kind of perverse, twisted way where we needed to see the 4 sides of humanity. And I thought that was really, really interesting and cool. But apart from that, I felt like everything else in the finale just ramped up so quickly, but then kind of pitter-pattered out in this kind of odd way. It was kind of, cathartic to see them in the cafe, in the diner, realizing, hey, cool, we have saved humanity, it's all good. But it just felt I don't know, I felt like there was something missing. And honestly, I can't put my finger exactly what it is. I didn't leave going, this is what should have happened. He should have added this moment, this scene. I just feel like something was left out of the story that made me just leave the movie going, oh, that was powerful. Because for so much of the film, I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm wow, this is actually really, really, really great. And then by the end, I just felt a little bit deflated. So I'm just super curious what other people think. Did people find the ending a little lackluster? Did they enjoy the film as a whole? Did they find the red herrings kind of believable at times? Because I suppose the red herrings don't need to be believable if I'm still enjoying the film and the ride of the film from the character's perspective, and I really did. It's just how I just wish it had tricked me. The way the little girl in the movie had been tricked, where halfway she's just even towards right at the end, she's just kind of I thought it wasn't real, and she's so shocked that the apocalypse is actually happening. I just wish I'd had that kind of, jaw-dropping moment. But oh well. Does that make the film bad? No. There's a really great horror film that comes to mind that does this exact thing where right at the end, it's like, twist, actually the whole thing that you thought was totally not real is real, and it just blew me away. I was kind of hoping for that kind of mind-blowing kind of, experience. I also wish I could say the name of that film, but I don't want to ruin that film if you haven't seen that film, because it's just, what a film. Maybe it was just because it was M. Night Shyamalan, I did expect a twist, subconsciously. I don't know. Super curious what people think. And even though I have said all of this negativity about the ending, that very, very last scene where they both turn on and off that song from the flashback, I thought was absolutely gold. Like, what a way to end the film. I'm talking about everything prior to that in like the last kind of 15 minutes, but that final moment, just gold. I'm just trying to figure out why in my mind this isn't in the kind of top echelon of M. Night Shyamalan films, like the classics, Signs, The Sixth Sense, The Happening. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, buddy, give it a like, subscribe, tell your friends, share it around, do whatever with it, I guess. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and comment below. I would love to know what people think of this movie.